We have done a few item-only runs now for Final Fantasy 2, 9, and even the original 10. Well, surely we can't do them all, and we'd have to fail somewhere, right? Well, let's try on Final Fantasy X-2, the Pop Star's Journey. Now, items only in Final Fantasy X can be very broken, as we saw in that run. This time around, though, we're not so lucky. All items across the board are absolutely massively nerfed, and we also have no way of getting the best items. So we're really going to have to break out all the stops here. For now though, let's talk about the rules, because I might as well make a stupid challenge even harder. We'll also be going over some information about this run. So, rule number 1. Items only. It's pretty self-explanatory. We are only allowed to use items with a couple of exceptions. Just like in Final Fantasy X, we're going to allow the use of steal and bribe, so we can at least get said items. However, all damage and healing must be done with items. Rule 2. Previously, we banned mix. However, the alchemist dress sphere in X-2 also has mix. Only it's absolutely nowhere near as broken as 10, so we're going to allow it. Likewise, Alchemist can also learn abilities to use items for free. They're still items, so we're going to allow them. Rule 3. Any dress sphere is allowed to be equipped. However, the previous 2 rules must be followed. And number rule 4. The opening tutorial must be completed first before we can properly follow these rules. However, I am not allowed to grind during them and must simply rush through until we get control of the Celsius. This happens after Gagazet, aka the first mission of the game. And last but not least, rule 5. I must also include the hot spring cutscene and the massage minigame because I know you're all perverts and will hit that like button if I do. And as a bonus rule, scan this QR code. It leads to a magical place with some goodies for you all. Like, seriously, there's actually some good stuff in there for you. So, with all that said, let's talk the basics. So firstly, no opening cutscene because copyright. Secondly, we can't actually begin the run right away due to the forced mandatory tutorials. We can, however, still appreciate Yuna in the Moogle costume. So for the tutorials, we just use auto battle, which uses normal attacks, until Yuna appears and we get the songstress tutorial. Then for Gagazet, I equip everybody with the thief class, and again, just use auto battle for all of the fights, including the boss fight with LeBlanc, Ormi, and Logos, and then again for Boris the Spider. Once this is done, we get the sphere, and finally the tutorial is done, which means we can start the run officially from this point forward. Now, when we finally get control, it's time to get our items, and this is going to suck beyond belief. Like, seriously, it's gonna suck so much. I'm no stranger to grinding, that is obvious. However, we have to do a huge grind right now. Not for levels, in fact, we're not even really gonna earn any XP. Instead, it's going to be a massive stealing spree. Some items are common, some are rare. Some we'll do later that require us to oversoul mobs, then we're going to have to farm stupid amounts of gil, pay off a walker's debt, and then do a ton of bribes. And that is before I can do any of the story. So to see how cursed this run is going to be, I'll get our lovely editor with it to throw an image up on the screen of the items we need, how to get them, and in what chapter we can get them. But we also still have the problem of trying to encounter the mobs. As you can see here with me hunting around for Bomb in Gagazet, it just does not want to spawn. So this is gonna take a while, especially since I decided to try Macalonia and the game crashed. And while doing this, let's break down some of the mechanics here for those who don't know the game inside out. Stealing the items is quite self-explanatory, and we do that using the Thief class's steal ability. We, however, cannot use the Mug ability as that deals damage. Bribing is also done via the Thief, where we use gil to make the monsters leave the fight and we get a ton of items in exchange. To learn that though, we need to get AP, or ability points. This is the part that also sucks. Each action we use generates 1 AP. However, healing actions must actually restore HP to give AP, and we can only earn 99 AP per fight. That part is fine though, as we'll have Thief mastered long before we even get all the steals we need. Later on though, when we unlock Alchemist in Chapter 2, that will be a much harder process. Also, a small issue that is possible in this sort of run is being greedy, which can lead to game overs. Now, let's talk about the biggest issue this run, shall we? And that's damage. Some items in the original 10 were great and did a ton of damage. In 10.2, we really aren't so lucky. The vast majority of the items barely do any damage, and by vast majority I mean all of them except for 2, which we can't even get. Mix is almost terrible in this game, but we also can't even use the semi-decent mixies. And also, we simply have absolutely no way of getting the best items to use as they require floor 80 plus of the Via Infinito, and there is absolutely no chance we can do that. So, this run is going to be a contest of staying alive while slowly working mobs down, and also hoping I have enough items to do enough damage, and to ensure I stay alive long enough in the fights. So, with all that said, the explanation took maybe 3 or 4 minutes, but hey, thanks to movie magic, we skipped through a solid 30 hours of item farming. We're not done though, not even close. Now we need Gil, and sadly we don't really have a good method for this right now outside of just generally killing things, selling steals, etc. But first we need to go to Mokolonia, specifically the shop at the end, as we need to rescue a walker. Turns out the poor guy is just casually 100,000 gil in debt to the Albed, and they want to collect on it. So we have to chase him down, and when we find him, we help him out by hiding him on our airship. And once we buy enough of his items to pay his debt off, he gives us a massive discount. Thankfully as well, because of all the stealing, we ended up with tons of accessories that we could sell for a huge profit, which means we can pay his debt off pretty easily. However, we're far from done right now. Instead, with his debt being paid off, we can now buy from him super cheap and then sell the items to Barkeep for a profit, effectively giving us an infinite money glitch, which we're absolutely gonna take advantage of, since we can only do it for a short time, and we're gonna need bribe money and money for the shops in the future. This will cost us 12,000 gil to buy 99 of every item from him, but when sold, we get 29,000. This means we earn 17,000 gil profit every 10 seconds or so. So, we're going to do this until we get to 1 million gil. Now, where do I buy laser sharks from? Look, I'm kidding. We have enough gil for now. So, it's time to go bribing with it. Or at least that was my initially planned route when I was coming up with this challenge. The problem? Thief doesn't have bribe. Instead, the Lady Luck dress sphere does, and we can't even get that until Chapter 3, which completely screws all my original plans up. So now we need to do something else. So, we're going to have to go after the Zifactinus, and please don't ask me to pronounce that correctly because I have no chance. We're going after that because after killing 14 of them, it will oversoul, and when oversouled, we can steal water gems from it. Likewise, we can get lightning gems from an oversouled bolt drake, and lastly, fire gems come from lesser drakes when oversouled. And so it's now time to put this plan into action. The downside is I have to also go back to steal more items again to continue killing the mobs to oversoul them. We're now at over 70 hours for this save, and all we've done is the tutorial mission and one side quest. But hey, at least now we can do some story, I guess, so there's that at least. So we head to Zanakan first and do have some trash fights we need to get through. Nothing major, just some goons and some machine gun snakes, but the gems we got do enough damage to take them out pretty quickly. Then we get to the boss here. Sanctuary Keeper. Since we're still early game though, our gems are more than enough to take the big guy out after just 2 uses, since they deal about 1500 damage. Pretty good for chapter 1, not even terrible for chapter 2. But chapter 3 onwards, there's just tons of huge spikes, and these are going to turn terrible very, very quickly. The sad thing is, these are basically the best items we can get damage-wise this run. Anywho, now we get to do Besaid, and sorry to all of you lovely horn rats, Lulu is pregnant with Walker's child, but he gets cold feet and decides to go out for some milk, so it's up to us to chase him down and drag him back. But first we need to do some treasure hunting to find the 4 ciphers to open the door to Besaid's cave. Sadly, after getting them all, I completely brain farted and ran right past the door without even thinking, so I had to run all the way back. It's okay though, it happens. Anywho, inside we find Walker, who wants us to go find a sphere at the back of the cave. No problem, buddy. But we do have to kill a teeny tiny dragon first though. Nothing some gems can't deal with, as once again it goes down in 2 gems. And with that, we're done here. So now let's go to Kilika, where trouble is really brewing up. We don't actually have much to do here though. We just sort of skirt around the Civil War, spy on them casually telling everybody what the password is, and then get through the game's nasty trick on the last group of guards, pretending the option should be even when a 5th guard comes late. Oh, and get to a boss at the end with YSLS0. And if somebody can remember my unit only run, you know how annoying and nasty this guy can be. Fun fact though, in that run I also killed him with water gems, so you know what I'm about to do right now. And ta-da, he's dead after 3 gems. But for the love of God, I have no idea what happened to Payne's model in the cutscene right after. Even some other models are getting super messed up, so I'm thinking my install is a little dodgy maybe. I'll try and reinstall if things get too crazy. But I guess that's what happens when I get lazy and just essentially copy files over instead of manually downloading everything fresh. So with that, we're now officially on to chapter 2. We have to deal with absolute boatloads of cutscenes here, and also a moment where we need to shove the lazy musicians into the lift, because I guess they just don't want to walk on their own. But then, dun dun dun, we got robbed by LeBlanc when we were giving the sphere to New Yevon. So now we're gonna go strip some of our goons of their clothes, which also means it's time for the Hot Springs event. Or, at least it will be. First, we're gonna go get to the alchemist dress sphere. To get this, we need to go to the Calmlands and clear out the old Fiend Arena of monsters for Clasko. And upon doing so, we get the alchemist dress sphere. This means later on, once we learn its abilities, our healing items and damage items will get a huge ×2 boost to potency. But first, we need to do the Chocobo quest at Mihan. This allows us to get Clasko, the Chocobo, and Callie on the airship. And of course, we have to do a side boss as well, the Chocobo Eater. He only has 2,300 health though, so dies pretty fast considering he's also weak to fire gems. Although, honestly, I don't understand how there's still any alive, considering the amount of these I have killed in the original FF10. Anyway, with Alchemist, the abilities we want first is items level 2. This makes our items much faster, nearly twice as fast, aka the ATB for them. And then we want Elementalist right after to double our damage. We're not going to grind them just yet though, as we're still sufficiently strong right now. Okay, it's time. Now come on you dirty buggers, you best hit that like button and leave a comment, because I called you out. Let the world know you're a glorious pervert for enjoying this hot spring cutscene. Just a shame the models are messed up, but hey, we can at least see 2 nice hairstyles and a pair of floating eyes, right? FYI, I have already reinstalled the game as well, so I have no idea why the models are so horrible. Although, fun fact, somebody in my Discord server has this exact same issue, but on the original FF10. Although their issue is on the ROG Ally, while mine is on laptop. Is it weird though that every year games just get buggier and buggier, even ones that have been fine for years? We kind of put it down to AMD drivers though, as that's the only similarity we share. Right after, though, our dreams of joining them are dashed, as the other Pbird army is here and we need to beat him down. We mix some gems together for Tidal Wave, which is basically just an upgraded water gem, although I realize I'm an idiot, as now I'm spending 2 gems to kill things that 1 gem can kill. So, I'm going to go back to just using 1 gem from now on until we start to hit the high HP enemies, which will be located at the end of this chapter. But hey, at least we got a uniform. So now let's go to Josie for the second, shall we? And here we fight Ormi and Logos together. Again though, some individual gems do the trick, although you might notice it's starting to take more and more gems. Anybody who watched my recent unit only run a month or 2 back will know that the enemy HP is going to absolutely start to skyrocket now, and this poxy damage is gonna mean nothing to us. We're also going to have to figure out something for HP, since alchemists don't naturally have any decent HP pool, which just means we'd end up dying non-stop later. Also, enjoy the butt shot at the end of the mission. So let's go grab the last costume, and this is in Bevelle, along with another boss fight with Logos, which went exactly as you can imagine. Now, since we've stolen clothes from a bunch of goons, it's time to break into LeBlanc's hideout, which means, yes, you dirty animals, it's time for the massage section. I tell you, it's almost like I know what you're all really here for. After the fun is over though, we get another fight with Ormi and 2 goons, which was a quick fight. Then Ormi and Logos together, who now last a little bit longer. We're getting to the point now where I'm going to start using Mix a little, since as you saw with Riku's HP, it started to drop a little low. It's okay right now, but after the next boss, things are going to get much harder. And speaking of the next boss, it's the final fight with Ormi, Logos, and LeBlanc. Thank God. But also, thank God I saved since the game crashed during the cutscene. But a quick load and we're back to the fight. This is where we're going to start using Mix now, as it allows us to save on items, thanks to the slightly higher damage. It's not a huge save by any means, but at least still a little handy. I'm also playing around with different mixes just to see which one does the most damage, and to check if they're different, which they are, so it's time to play around a lot with it. Sadly, the fight doesn't last long enough for me to properly check everything out, so I might have to look up the different combinations online. Once the fight is done though, we're going to the absolute most hated area of the game for me. At least, the area that isn't via Infinito anyway. However, it is in the same location. We're going to Bevelle. Getting through the Cloister is far more straightforward this time than in 10, but we have to do some fights, wasting our precious items. And then Yuna decides to Leroy Jenkins down a giant gaping hole with no considerations of broken bones, let alone the expected death you would get from falling from an insane height. Once down here, we have a puzzle to undo the locks to the lower levels, and to create some platforms. Doing each of these also gives us a battle. It's not too dangerous, even though they can two-shot me pretty effortlessly. The good news though is I can do the same back. Once we've done all the switches, we're going to get an interesting boss. The Precepts Guard. It's not exactly strong and it has a moderate amount of HP. The big issue with this guy is his status attacks, and even worse, he has death, which he really likes using. And in fact, that's what happened here. He pretty much instantly killed Pain while I was doing my mixes. The bright side though is I was about to get a Phoenix down off to revive her while my second mix was going off. Although we didn't really need it, as the second mix was actually enough to take the boss down. And this is where I cry now, because that was the last stupidly easy boss we're going to have. Coming up are 2 bosses basically back to back. I can thankfully backtrack and save between them though, and damage-wise, Baralai and Bahamut get a huge increase, same with HP and other defensive stats. Granted, it's not stupidly huge, but still pretty big compared to everything we faced so far. And then after these guys, we'll be on to Chapter 3, and that's where we have to fight all the Aeons from the previous game. There will also be another item grind in Chapter 3 as well, but we'll get to that later. For now, let's finish the bosses here in Bevelle, shall we? First of them is Baralai. and he surprised me quite a bit. My previous experience with him was honestly quite painful. This time around, however, it actually ended up being really straightforward, and he went down in 2 mixies. He didn't even get to abuse his high speed and damage, which was kind of shocking. I came into this fight fully expecting 1 dead character at the end, but I guess sometimes luck is just on our side, even if it is rare. So, let's move on to Bahamut. Daph is no longer editing these videos now, so we're not going to make jokes about killing Bahamut unless you guys want us to use YouTube's nifty little clip feature and then go spam the clips at her so she never forgets us. Now, the big question is, do we drown him, electrocute him, or burn him? Well, of course, the answer is D, all of the above. And it takes a few turns this time around. Gotta think each mix is about 2,000 to 2,500 damage currently, so you can see how the health is increasing quickly now for enemies. As for Bahamut, we actually got quite lucky here, as he didn't really do much outside of a simple curse and a couple of melee hits. Kind of the best pattern we could have got, really. He has some much stronger attacks after all, but the power of Mix and Alchemist's level 2 item ability just proved too much for him. And thankfully, Riku learned the skill finally as well. Just a shame Vegnagun, the giant, almost omniscient and essentially explained in-game as a Deus Ex Machina, has sensed we mean to harm it, and so kinda dug out of here and ran away to the Farplane. Man, I really need to make a video talking about the Farplane and how it's essentially just the life of the planet, aka no different to the livestream in 7. There's so many things about the Farplane that you just don't even see people talking about after all. But, well, if you want that video, then drop a comment and let me know. If I see enough comments asking for it, then I'll set some special time aside to work on it. Anywho, we're now on to chapter 3, and to start with here, we need to go back to Besaid, the village, and every other village is under attack from fiends as well, all coming out of the temples, because the faith have disappeared. The Dark Aeons, however, have not, as the first one we need to fight is here in Besaid, and that means we're going to be dealing with Dark Valefor, who kinda sucks, because it likes to use Energy Ray and Energy Blast. It's 2 overdrives from FF10, so that's kinda scary, and I don't want to look at bird boobs yet. So let's go to Luca instead for the Sphere Break tournament. TLDR, this is a coin game based on maths. We have to use our coins to make multiples of the core number. For example, your core number is 2. Multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. You will need to use addition for your border and coin entries to get the multiples. Now, you have 2 for your entry coin. Select it, the twinkle around will be heard, and you'll get a core break written across the screen, and the next turn comes. You have achieved the multiples by selecting the correct number, but you do not get quota, just using the entry coin. You will need to use border coins to add on to your quota. For example, your core number is 7. Your entry coin only has 2, 3, 5, and 6. If you select 3, there's no core break because you have not reached the criteria. Next, you have the choice to either use the border or the entry coins. Select 4 on the border, and 4 plus 3 equals 7, which means you reach the criteria. And of course, you used 1 border coin, so you have 1 quota. And yes, this game sucks about as much as you might think. It's also not even the worst damn minigame in this game. You think Lightning Dodge and Chocobo Race in the original were bad? Hell no, they got nothing on this game's horrible minigames. Anywho, we save and play a bunch of games for the tournament. The end match with Shinra happens and we win the Lady Luck dress sphere, which means now we can finally bribe. At least, once we unlock the ability. So, can you guess what it is time to do? Yep, grind AP. We're going to max out both Lady Luck and also Alchemist right now, and we're absolutely gonna cheese this. We can only use items after all, and getting items takes time, right? Well, no. We can buy items on the ship. The only thing we need to do is make sure the potions actually restore HP. So while it takes time, we're going to just do fight at the creature capture menu on the airship. And then when we run out of potions, we're going to go to Barkeep on the airship and buy another 99 of them. Once the AP grind is finished, here are the results. For Alchemist, we now do double our damage from earlier with all items, and our items even heal us by twice the amount. Then, the item names you see on screen, like Mega Potion, we essentially have an unlimited supply of because it's part of the class. And I'm going to allow them because they're still technically items, and we could also just farm these in huge numbers anyway if we wanted to with Bribe. We obviously mastered Thief way earlier in the run, which lets us steal items, improves our chances of stealing, etc. And lastly is Lady Luck. The dress sphere we're going to be using a lot coming up. It gives us the bribe effect. We also get double EXP, double dropped items, and double gil from it. So now we have this done. Let's go do some bribing, shall we? Now, we already threw up a list earlier of the items, but the most important ones we want is the Shining Gem. We're still going to stock on most of the others though, and also refill our gems. So it's off to Zanarkand. The mob we want is called Ironside, and for 52,700 gil, we can get 16 or 20 Shining Gems. If it's oversold, then for 75,962 gil, we can get 30 or even 40 Shining Gems. And as a bonus, it also drops Shadow Gems. Not sure how helpful they will be, but I still want them. For now, since we have access finally to pretty much all the items we can get, let's talk about some awesome mixes and their combinations required. So, first of all, we have Holy Water with a gem which gives us White Hole, an attack which deals about 600 damage per hit and hits 8 times. This is going to be our main source of damage this run, and is basically the best combination we can get, since there's no way for us to get Sunburst, which is technically the strongest attack we can get with Mix. Then, Final Wall, which requires Chocobo Wings and an Antidote. This gives the party basically all the defensive buffs, something which is going to come in very, very handy for a lot of fights. So, let's go put these to the test, shall we? Which means it's time for Besaid, where we speak to Lulu and watch brother look up Yuna's dress? Skirt? I have no idea what it's called. Then it's time to head through the Cloister of Faith in the temple to reach the boss, Dark Veilfer. Just a shame Walker once again got creamed. You know, for somebody who fought Sin with just a Blitzball, he's pretty weak, huh? Can't even handle a few fiends. So, to start with, I set up Final Wall for all those nice, lovely defensive abilities, before which Veilfer would only need 3 or 4 hits to kill a character. Afterwards, his damage went from 300 to 100. A nice drop. Then for White Hole spam, and remember when I explained its damage? Well, that was before the alchemist potency buffs, which means because of having the skills, each hit actually does about 1,000 damage, and because of the stacking chain effect, we end up doing over 10,000 damage per mix. Absolutely a little too strong, but hey, I use it to show you guys what to expect from it. It's just annoying we actually can't use that on many bosses because of the element, including one of the hardest fights. I'm also actually going to swap over to Lady Luck Dress Sphere now as well and just use Shining Gems. The reason for this is I want to take advantage of the double EXP and double drop abilities the class has. So now let's go to Kilika, but we can't get to the temple, it's blocked off, so I guess we can go visit our old friend Faceless Donna. Seriously, these model issues are actually beginning to get irritating now. I also have no idea what is going on. I only seem to get this issue on my laptop, which has nearly the same hardware as my main PC. AMD CPU, Nvidia GPU, drivers have been reinstalled cleanly, game has been reinstalled fresh, and everything is up to date with clean installs on basically everything. And yet, the PC, aside from the odd crash, has no issues with models. The only difference between the two machines is the laptop is Windows 11. So I'm expecting something on that side to be the main reason for this, but I just can't figure it out. So, let's go take our frustrations out on the gods as we sneak in by running literally straight past them and head to the temple where we have to fight our way through a bunch of divas. And while these fights aren't exactly difficult, you can see that they do about half my health per hit. But the bigger issue is they take 4 shining gems to kill. So by the time we get to the end of the cloister, we've already used up an entire quarter of the shining gems we got before. We're only in chapter 3. There's still the rest of this chapter, and then 2 more whole chapters before we're done. How many times am I going to have to bribe for these? I mean, sure, I can use White Hole, but still. Anywho, Dark Ifrit time. He doesn't have huge amounts of HP, however, and he is fast and strong. He's fully capable of two-shotting me, and so I end up having one character spam Mega Potions nearly the whole fight. Every single turn, just to ensure everybody stays alive. Then the other 2 are spamming shining gems. And eventually he does indeed go down. So now it's on to the final fight for this chapter. Dark Ixion, and this guy is pretty brutal. He's both way faster and stronger than the previous 2 fights, and his arrow spark is extremely evil. If you remember my unit only run, well, you know what kind of nasty tricks he has, so of course we're going to try and do it with Lady Luck, because I'm a gambler. No, I just want double EXP rewards to try and gain some levels. Using no encounter almost all challenge and barely killing anything earlier on other than oversouling has left my levels kind of meh, but I still want to use it to keep myself at a lower level to add a little bit more challenge. Now, this would be where we talk about the fight with Dark Ixion, but the game crashed again. Honestly, I really wish I could just bring a console to work with me so I can record stable versions of these games. So once we got back into the game and into the fight, Yuna almost died literally instantly. I got haste up with Choco Wing, but it falls off nearly instantly, which was kind of pointless. Then we adapt to the Mega Potion and the Shining Gem strategy, which thankfully the Mega Potion went off when Yuna was just 1 hit away from death. And how did Ixion respond? By doing 60% of her health in damage on the next turn again. We also burned through a ton of our Mega Potions and Shining Gems though, and I can't really stock up on them in Chapter 4. At least, I don't think I can off the top of my head. We'll soon see though. And although we actually won, we have a bigger problem. We're finishing Chapter 3 now, and Chapter 4 is a massive difficulty spike. There's a boss later that I'm pretty sure can't be damaged by items, and also the fact every attack he has will one-shot me, including some AoE ones. Anywho, time to fall down a hole again, as Ixion comes and blasts Yuna down there. She ends up in the Farplane, by the way. Also, notice how there's no columns of water rising up to the sky like in FF10 or even earlier in 10.2. Hint hint. There's a reason for that. I don't think many people have figured it out, although I did speak about it in my 100% series. Anywho, Yuna goes kind of crazy where she thinks she finds Tidus. Shame it's not him. Instead, it's who the faith-based Tidus on. So, time for lots and lots of story from Nuge and Gipple, who give us some spheres and chase Shuyin into the great beyond. Yuna thinks she's all alone and starts whistling again. Not sure how she thinks that would really help in this situation, but hey, at least she eventually manages to get out and we end up back on the Celsius for Chapter 4. The concert chapter. And no, there's going to be no cutscene for that as it is massively copyrighted, but hey, Christmas is coming up. Maybe I should do a Christmas version of 1000 words this year, kind of like the 12 days of Final Fantasy last year. What do you all think? Anywho, to do a concert, we need a promoter. So let's go grab Tobly from the Moonflow. Sadly, the Penguin lookalike is in trouble and everybody is after him for being shady. And this is a super annoying little moment as well because we have to run up and down the screens constantly for no reason. He eventually steals a hover, crashes it, and then rides a Shoopuf over towards Guado Salam, and then even summons a Shoopuf to defeat his enemies. When we find him, we tell him about the concert, and him, along with his nerve-wracking army of Hypolo, are ready to come with us. Then we just have a dancing minigame on the ship, which can best be described as just press all the buttons. No, seriously, you can just mash all the buttons and get a perfect score. Way more than we possibly need. Now, we need a location. So what spot is better than the place that is constantly being struck by thunder? No, seriously, why not the Calmlands? So, it's off to the Thunder Plains, where we enter a cave. It's a little bit of a maze, but at the end, we have our next boss, the Salamander. And this guy is gonna be a wall, if my unit only taught me anything. I start off with Chocobo Wings, but again learn that there's honestly not much point in using them, so I move on to Shining Gems. But we have a problem. We absolutely need to spam Mega Potions here, because his melee attack leaves me with just 100 HP left when hit with it, and that's with me being full HP as well. His Flame Breath, on the other hand, confuses me because in my unit only run, she was much higher level and it did way more damage back then. Maybe it's gravity based, I'm not sure. Likewise, his Tail Whip attack did way less damage to me this time as well. Both that and Flame Breath were only doing about 40 to 60% of my HP per hit, so about 500 damage on average. But in unit only, his attacks were doing 2 or even 3 times more. Absolutely think there's some kind of gravity aspect to his attacks. And thankfully, his magic immunity does not impact items either, meaning the Shining Gems could take him down. Sadly though, my Mega Potions are still being consumed. We do eventually take him down though, which means it's time for 1000 words. However, it's heavily copyrighted and I like having my channel also. Once again, the game bugged out and we have a green screen. Yay for PC games. So instead, please enjoy this footage of me singing in the shower. And now with that forever burned into your memories, we're on to the final chapter. So let's go fight the ultimate wall. 3 more Dark Aeons. These have vastly more HP and damage than the ones from chapter 3 as well. And in fact, was the biggest wall in my unit only run. But hey, we're allowed 3 characters this time, so what could go wrong, right? Well, the first thing to go wrong is we have to jump down another Faith Hole. Seriously, how on earth do they not break their legs jumping down from such high distances? People who do parkour would love to know the secret. I, on the other hand, hope that they never find out. It's kind of funny watching parkour fails after all. Anyway, we're now pretty much in hell, so time to go fight our first Dark Aeon here. Dark Shiva. We have to be very careful of Diamond Dust and Heavenly Strike here, both of which would be very lethal to us. Shiva does also have a lot of evasion, but since we're using items, we don't really need to worry too much about that. Instead, it's her speed we need to worry about and the fact she can inflict stop. As for the fight, we adapt the same strategy as always, and we get hella lucky right from the get-go. She decides to attack pretty much the whole party instead of focusing on one character. Her melee does 1/3 of my health, her Blizziga does 2/3, and her Heavenly Strike does half of my HP. With her speed, it's very easy for her to get multiple turns in. Thankfully, nobody died before I got the first Mega Potion off, and while she does eventually manage to inflict stop on pain, we do manage to get through it. But my Shining Gems are running out now, which is not good. The next fight, however, is the one I'm most worried about. The Dark Magus Sisters. It's 3v3 here, and they have so many attacks that I need to be careful with them. They heal, inflict tons of statuses, and have a bajillion different ways to kill me with. So we're going to have to kill these in a very strict order. Now, for the sisters, we're going to start with the dangerous Mindy first due to Prasado. After this, we'll do Sandy, and then lastly Cindy, because of her really high HP. We use the same strategy as always for Mindy and Sandy, and while we do get hit a few times and burn through so many of our Shining Gems, we do get them both down, which leaves just Cindy. For Cindy, I really don't want to waste another 10 Shining Gems, so I swap over to Alchemist and use Mix for a few white holes to take it out. But then we get a disaster. The game crashes again. What's really annoying, I had the exact same crash on my unit only run. Now I'm curious if they just keep happening at the same exact points. If so, our next one should be during Vegnagun. But before we get there, it's time for Dark Anima. An absolute tank when it comes to HP. So this time around, I go into the fight with 3 alchemists. Why? Well, Pain inflicts a boatload of statuses, and the worst one of them all, Itchy. This completely stops all actions by that character except sphere changing and fleeing. And of course, I get hit with it instantly on one character. So I set up some defenses with Final Wall before going all in with White Hole. Anima has 36,000 HP after all, so it's a lot to work through. And before we get the kill, I get itchied again on a second character. So now it's all or nothing. A gamble. Will I win or will I lose? And yes, I completely forgot how to actually cleanse the status until I looked it up after. Luckily, it's okay as we managed to win without cleansing, but we were so close to losing here. In fact, we would have lost here if not for the fact I dodged an itchy status. So, now we're on to the final dungeon, and of course that means avoiding Azidahaka like the freaking plague. I have no interest in fighting something with 140,000 HP using only items. Seriously, that would basically clean my supply out. And of course, I fail 100% of that in the first instance. And can you see how dangerous he is? He freaking murdered me so fast and inflicted me with Itchy. I managed to get healed up and revived, although Pain died right after, so I kind of relegated myself to game over and went pure damage, which for some reason actually worked for me and we killed him. But that kind of just shows what we're in for here. So we have to be very careful and avoid the lightning at the giant arches while we run around playing the pianos. And of course the musical step mini maze that I really can't help but ask who designed this last section and why. Like seriously, did anybody else get stuck here as a kid for hours and hours and hours until getting lucky and getting through it randomly? Hopefully I'm not the only one, but now we're here. The showdown with Vegnagun, the equivalent of a robot god, and this is broken down into 5 freaking bosses, with the first fight being with the tail. Okay, now it's time to hurt Vegnagun like Stream Chat hurts me, which means we're going all in. Protection instantly, White Hole for damage, and finally Mega Potions for healing. We only have barely 1000 HP though, so I imagine I'm going to die quite a lot, especially because my White Hole damage is basically cut in half now. But also notice how I nearly got one shot the instant the fight started. Luckily, before putting protection up, I decided to queue up Mega Potions instead for extra safety. After this, I get Final Wall up for Shell and Protect along with a little help with haste. Then I go to 2 White Hole users while throwing out Mega Potions. Thanks to the Final Wall though, he's only really hitting me for about 300 damage now. So in the end, I decide to stop using a Mega Potion every single turn and instead go to using White Hole with all 3 characters, which is thankfully enough to get the kill without needing another heal. But that was only the tail, the easiest of all the fights. Because next up we have the leg, and it turns out I was wrong. The tail wasn't the easiest, the leg is. Why? Because of Final Wall, the protection means we take almost no damage from the multi-hitting attack that I'm not even going to try and pronounce because I know I'd get 200 comments calling me an idiot. And because of the reflect from Final Wall, this means we don't have to worry about the damage from the yellow orb at all. And because the orb's damage is normally pretty high, to balance it out, the devs only made the leg have a little HP pool, so we actually take it down pretty quickly. But just in case it had anything nasty, I also queue up some Mega Potions from Stash. Okay, 2 down, 3 to go. So let's do the core and the bulwarks, and hopefully we don't end up like LeBlanc, Gipple and Nuge. So we start off with protection, and then we actually kill the 2 bulwarks with a single White Hole each, kinda surprising me. Sadly, it did get a regen onto the core, but it's not really gonna do much for him as we go full damage now with 3 sets of White Hole each turn. With all these rapid fire holy casts, it doesn't take too long before it dies wise. And no, I won't be making a plan B joke here like in Uno only. That kind of broke too many people, and I don't like making people laugh the same way twice, unless it's from looking at my face after a wheel of pain. Instead, let's talk about how Vegnagun and Shuyan are completely trying to compensate for something with such a big gun. But hey, 2 phases left. Just Vegnagun's head and then the fight with Shuyan. Let's do this. And straight off the bat, things are terrible as we're being one-shot, so I can't get up any protection, and instead have to revive. Right after I queue that revive up, boom, another one-shot. This is going horribly. After this, I managed to heal and get protection set up though. So now we've defanged the head a little, but for safety, I'm still going to spam a mega potion every turn. Now it's just a case of white hole spam to kill off the extras before finally taking the head down. A very, very risky opening to the fight, but we managed to pull it back. And now it's the final fight. If we do this, that means we would have completed the entire game with only items. But once again, we get a death the instant the fight starts. Luckily enough, I hadn't queued up all my actions yet, and Riku was only set to use a Mega Potion, so I use a Phoenix down to revive, and thankfully it goes off before the final wall, which means not only did we get the res off, all 3 characters got the buffs. So I queue up a Mega Potion to heal and start the white hole spam with everybody, while Shuyan uses the exact same overdrives Tidus did from the previous game. But hey, he has a new weapon and they have different names, so it's clearly not just a copy and pasted from the original 10, right? With final wall up though, Shuyan's main offensive loses its bite, and the white hole spam takes him out. We did it. We completed another game with only items. Question is though, what's the next challenge? You guys know the deal. There are 9 hints in this video for what the next game and challenge is. Let's see who can guess it. But guys, do remember to like the video, drop a comment and subscribe if you're new. Also, don't be shy and scan the QR code to find all my socials, or you can find them all down below in my link tree as well. Until next time though everybody, thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.